right, boys, we're back. Off season is over. Shop Talk returns after our normal, 6-month hiatus. What's happened? I don't know. Basketball season, disappointing. Baseball season was good, and then disappointing.
Yeah.
And then now we're in football season. So
the most important time of the year is back.
I don't know. I got super into college baseball this year. Yeah. I went to the dang Hoover for a week.
Yes.
SEC championships.
The baseball tournament down there. Then I came real close. Honestly, if I wasn't going on vacation, or if I didn't go on vacation during the finals of Omaha, I would have probably gone there too. But it was fun. I mean, I think all in all, Tennessee's baseball season was a success based on where we thought they would be halfway through the season.
Yeah, I agree. I think the expectations there were exceeded for sure. Just making the College World Series this year,
especially after the way things kind of started.
Yeah, I went and watched them play Florida in the series first quarter of the SEC season, and they just didn't look like they had much. Like, pitching wasn't really there. Now, the third game they did, but the first two games, you were kind of starting to wonder. Then they got swept by somebody.
They got swept by Arkansas.
And then we were like, I don't know about this. And then all of a sudden they turned it on. When they swept Vandy at home was when I think they kind of officially turned the corner.
And it seemed like at the beginning of the year, we knew what we lost as a roster, as far as position players. But then once you got what you had as far as a pitching staff, you thought, well, we may just mow right through people anyway.
Yeah.
But it seemed like the pitching just wasn't there like we expected early in the year. And then obviously the hitting had to get there. So it was definitely a rocky start there. But
anytime you end the season in Omaha, you it's hard to look back and think of the season as anything other than a success in that regard. No, in Florida's case, there were a few inches, in my opinion, my biased opinion, obviously a few inches away from winning the final. But from the beginning of the baseball season to the end, everyone knew LSU was the most talented team in the league. They didn't lose. That team absolutely deserved to win a championship. So.
Yeah, I think they had what I thought was the best player on the best team.
Yeah, and you can even say
the two best.
You can even answer that question with two people.
Yeah,
between Cruz and Skeens.
Yeah,
so Skeens is also winning life right now.
Yeah, Skeens.
So he's dating that girl.
He's dating Livy Dune and was the first pick in the draft.
I thought when you said Ann, I was like. He's dating two people?
Yeah.
He's dating Livy Dune and?
Yeah, that's not fair. He shouldn't have that much going for him at one time.
And the dude can hit bombs. They just don't let him hit.
Yeah.
Like at Air Force, he hit bombs. And I'm like, how is that? Well, I mean, I guess it's not unheard of with Caglione, but Skeens is the best pitcher in college baseball. Anyway, all right, so that's our
college football podcast.
That's our off-season recap. Yeah. I know you tuned in to hear Florida, Tennessee baseball recaps. But anyway, all right, Shop Talk is back. This episode will be our kickoff episode for the season. We'll do a little, season introduction / preview, and then we'll go into week one look ahead. So like normally our episodes consist of the first half of the episode talks about the previous week. The next half of the episode talks about the upcoming week. This is similar in that we're just going to give some SEC / playoff predictions to start, and then we'll get into the week one stuff. So this episode, it'll be releasing on the Monday. We're going to speak as if this is week one, basically going into week one. So yeah. Let's see here. I don't know. Tennessee. Football. We'll start with some overall feelings going into the season. Of course, we're heavy in the SEC specifically for Tennessee and Florida. We'll kind of touch on everybody, then we'll give some divisional predictions and then kind of go from there. But we'll start with Tennessee. I don't know. I kind of think there's some good momentum going into this season. Even though you're losing Heisman caliber quarterback, there's a lot of hype at the quarterback position. Of course, Heupel is got things. He's got the fan base confident that they're going to have good production on at least the offensive side of the ball. They've got, if we're looking at other opponents, they've got Georgia in a pretty good spot, with an unknown at quarterback. So I don't know. As Tennessee fans, what y'all feeling about them? You think are we cautiously optimistic? What are we?
I think that's a good way to describe the way I feel is cautiously optimistic. I think
more than you were last year. You think?
Last year, I think I don't know that I really knew what we had in Hendon Hooker.
Yeah, I don't think anybody did.
So this year, I kind of feel like we're talking about replacing him, but if I'm being completely honest, I watched that system and I watch and don't get me wrong, Hendon Hooker was unbelievable last year. His stat lines didn't lie, but I'm of the opinion that system can work for just about anybody that there was a lot of balls Hendon Hooker threw to guys that they were open by 10 yards. I mean it's not as much throwing it in tight windows, I think, as much as just reading defenses and stuff like that. If he's able to do that, I think the talent is obviously there for any part of it.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I think that I'm optimistic about it. I think the biggest question mark isn't the talent of Joe Milton, but it's just can he be accurate? Because this offense is geared on moving fast and pushing the ball down the field. But the moving fast part makes me a little nervous just because in the couple games that he played, he was not accurate on the short and intermediate routes. I mean, everybody knows he can throw the ball a mile, but it doesn't matter if you can throw the ball a mile unless unless you're able to move the chains and keep drives going.
That's right.
And so that's that's what I'd be most interested to see early in the season is can Joe hit those quick slants, those outs? Yes, he's got all the arm strength in the world, but can he hit, or can he, just keep the drives going? Yeah. Have the touch, put the ball where it needs to be, because that's what Hendon was so good at last year, and what made our offense really go is that he hit those passes, and when the pocket did collapse, he used his legs to. It wasn't, it was never his first look was to use his legs, but, he was, he's a good runner.
Yeah, he was sneaky quick too when he got out. It didn't look like, he kind of had the Dobbs feel to it where he was just, looked like he was moving in slow motion, but just running by people. And, that.
And I feel like Joe, because of his arm strength and his talent, sometimes, and again, small sample size, but he kind of just trusts that almost too much to where the pocket's collapsing. Well, give me just a half a second more and I can fling this thing, 70 yards down the field. Well, you've missed your opportunity at that point to, when you do have a lane, go ahead and take that and get a few positive yards or get a first down, extend the drive sort of thing. So hopefully it's just a maturity thing. And if he can step into that role, I think we have a chance to be really, really good. The other big loss that I see and just seeing who's going to step up into those roles is obviously at the wide receiver position. When you got two guys that go to the league, you got two big holes to fill. We do have some talented guys. Everybody knows Rue McCoy and Squirrel White coming back, and those two names. But then just, some of the younger guys coming in and transfers, just seeing who kind of steps up into that role.
Yeah, and it kind of going with the quarterback thing and the system thing that I mentioned earlier too. I feel like these receivers are able to step into those positions pretty well in Heupel's system too.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as last year, we weren't talking about Hyatt preseason.
No,
he was not the focal point of that receiving core.
Nope.
And then all of a sudden,
nobody even knew who he was hardly. I mean, it was all Brew McCoy and Tillman.
Yeah, it was all about Tillman.
I remember when Tillman went down. because didn't he go down at the start of the season?
About
And
third or fourth week.
I think he was actually not playing for the Florida game, and everyone's like, "Oh God, number one receiver." And then and then as the season went on, you're like, "Okay, Jalen Hyatt may be the number one receiver," and it ended up being so. But one thing I think, just from a outsiders-ish perspective, when we talk Joe Milton, to your point of like the system, or both of y'all's point about the system. The way those bearings are greased through with the Heupel's system are short intermediate passes. Like if you want to go fast, you have to complete. It doesn't have to be a ton of yards, but you have to complete the passes, the short intermediate stuff, because that greases your bearings there. That gets everything flowing. You start incompleting passes, then that makes things harder. As a play caller and as just a momentum offense, it makes things a little hard. So to your points, I do think that's going to be where, you can make it, not to be dramatic, but like where the season lies. Is he going to be able to have that in his arsenal, complete those? And because, I don't say that, I don't want to make this comparison because it sounds like I'm a Debbie Downer with Tennessee's season. But it does remind me a little bit of, I don't know that. Well, I'll make half the comparison. So remember when Kyle Trask played for Dan Mullen? Like he didn't do anything spectacularly, but in the system, all you needed to really do to be amazing is hit the open guy, because there's guys schemed open on every play, and do it consistently enough, and like let the system and let the offense and let the play calling do the work that it's good at. Just hit those open guys. And so I think a lot of it lies on Joe Milton too. Yeah, he can throw the ball through a brick wall. Yeah. But how often does that actually help you in that offense? I don't know. But it's never a bad thing to be able to do.
You're right. That's going to be the biggest factor. And like you said, Hendon was really good at those 5-yard hitting them quick. And then what that did was those guys got tired of giving up 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards, 5 yards. Then they start coming in, and then Hyatt's open over the top. So you gotta run it. That is the new age run game. So you've got to run it to set up the deep pass, and that is Tennessee's run. More or less. Obviously we still run the football, but
fair.
Short passing is the best run game.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was going to say the only other thing that I think needs to be touched on for Tennessee is how has the defense improved?
That was going to be
because they were really rough last year. They had a couple good games, but overall, thank God we scored a lot of points, because we gave up an insane amount of points. And at the end of the day, when you have a chance to get to the playoffs by just beating South Carolina and Vandy, which should have been easy, your defense goes to South Carolina and gives up 60 points.
60-something?
So, yes, the offense, I think everybody expects the offense to be good, and I think they will be good. And that part does hinge on what we were just talking about. But if the defense is improved, then hopefully, even if you do have, that's what's going to give you the freedom to really, if your offense does have a down game, it's not only reliant on that side of the ball to where you could maybe still stay in a game and steal a game if your defense can step up. And
I think as far as Heupel's recruiting goes, obviously we need to focus on defense a lot, but I think it's been easier for him to get good quality offensive players a lot quicker than it has been. Yeah. It's almost like you're going to have to prove yourself to get defensive guys in there. And obviously the offensive side, he's going to be fun to play for, but defensively, I don't know that I want to be out there for the amount of time, the possessions that they have out there in a game. When you're playing on Tennessee's defense, you better be in shape.
Yeah.
And you better be deep too. That's the other thing. We got to have depth on that kind of defense that's going to play that many minutes.
Okay, we'll hold the season predictions until the last half. But real quick, Florida. I'm trying to put some words into how I feel as a Florida fan that this season, like how I feel going into the season. I'll tell you one thing. nobody thinks they're going to be good. They're not predicted to do nothing. They're predicted to. I mean, I saw Takeo Spikes. That's his first name, right? Takeo Spikes from.
yeah.
Okay.
Keo.
He predicted them to go 4-8, which is. I don't even feel that insulted. Like, I kind of think, okay, I can't really. Maybe that won't be my prediction, but like, I kind of get it. Everybody else, when the SEC media days made their predictions, they were predicted to finish third from the bottom in the SEC East. So it went for the SEC media days. It was Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida. Yeah, I don't know. I know the cool thing to do, even amongst Florida fans right now, is just to talk about how disappointed they were in the quarterback thing, whether it be the recruiting to the one we signed with Graham Mertz. That's just not the route I'm going to take. And y'all know me, I'm not like super biased and I think they're going to be better than they are. I'm just not one to like decide that kids are going to be bad before they prove to me that they're not good. We're not in that business. So I'd like to think if I'm looking at if I'm trying to twist this situation but to give some hope to Florida fans, I would say, look at the last handful of really good quarterbacks throughout the last couple of years in college football. You've got, I know that the list goes deeper than this. But off the top of my head, you got Joe Burrow, you got Hendon Hooker. Both of those guys, there's a ton more, I'm sure, but both of those guys were transfers, and they weren't all that good at their initial spot, right? Mm-hmm. So like Joe Burrow he didn't win the starting job at Ohio State. He wasn't even all that good the first year at LSU. Hendon Hooker. Is that what
he started at Virginia Tech?
Yeah, but
he lost his job.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but was that my? Did I say Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I wasn't sure if I was saying him. Even Joe Milton. I couldn't remember if I said Joe Milton.
No, you said Hendon.
Both of them apply, at least in a sense that Joe Milton's at least got a lot of hype going into the season. So no one's looking at his past, stop and saying, oh, because he was not good there, therefore he will not be good anywhere. You can even go Stetson Bennett. You can go all these guys that we
Oregon,
thought. Bo Nix. Yes, that's
Nix.
another one that was like the top of my in the top of my list. Like no one thought Bo Nix was going to be any good.
We learned it at South Carolina.
What's that?
Spencer Rattler.
Oh
yeah.
Year.
Well, that's kind of my point too.
Yeah, like they come. I mean, they ain't dead just because they left a school.
Sure.
I mean, the transfer portal is real.
Sure.
And that kind of goes to your Florida conversation.
Yeah.
We don't know anymore what teams are going to be from one year to the next.
And we've all been around enough to know that like environments are important, coaching staffs are important, the way you feel on the team, like all these other things that factor into your performance on the field are important. So like, I'm not looking at Graham Mertz. First of all, I'm just a fan. I just watch them and hope they win. I'm not a crit. I'm not like I try not to be like a critic, but I would encourage Florida fans to kind of see it in like look at Graham Mertz as a kind of a blank slate. Who cares what he did at Wisconsin? Wisconsin they run like a very. This is just not. It's not a normal. Who cares? If he hadn't had his Wisconsin stop, he's at least a 4-star recruit. He had a lot of hype going into his college career. So like. Look at him like that, and that's kind of how I'm looking at him. I'm not saying he's going to be a Heisman winner, but I'm saying, like, let's just at least give the kid a chance before we just write him off and think that he's going to be terrible.
I mean, that's more common and more common each year, too.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, Baker Mayfield went through the
Baker
same
Mayfield.
thing.
Oh, there's just so many.
The kid at LSU, Daniels, is a transfer.
Exactly.
And he's expected to be the number one quarterback in the SEC this year. He's ranked as the number one QB in the best conference in football. And he wasn't great last year, but he was pretty good.
Yeah.
He had some great games.
Well, they made to the SEC championship game. No one thought they were going to do that.
Yeah.
And they beat Alabama. But and to further that point just a little bit, the situation that Mertz is stepping into, he's not stepping into a Georgia situation where like they're kind of, in a way, they're a little plug and play. Like they've got such a good defense, such a good offense, all these pieces, Brock, all these things. I'm not saying it's that, but Graham Mertz is not going to be required to win games with his arm for Florida because they have, I think, a criminally underrated, and I never hardly say that about the team I root for, but a underrated running back room. No one's talking about their running back room as being like, I see all these things like top running back rooms in the country or the SEC, and no one's listening to Florida. Florida's running back room is solid. It's as good as it's been in a long time, in my opinion. So he's not going to be asked to do a ton there. Just manage the game, make the passes you need to make. If the offensive line holds up well and we run the ball well, I think we're going to be a formidable opponent. I'm not saying we're going to win this or win that, but I don't see 4-8. Now, I don't necessarily see 8-4 either. But I'm okay. One thing I will ask too is like, I kind of hope Florida fans give Napier some grace here. And everybody says that. Everyone knows, like even going into last year, we're like, okay, we're not going to be very good this year. It's okay. We got a good recruiting class coming in. All these bright things for the future. But then when the losing starts, all that, you forget you said any of that. You're just like, fire everybody. So the energy we have now of like lowish expectations, let's
keep that energy.
Let's try to keep that a little bit.
Hey,
I've never heard that before. Hey, the expectations of just being really kind of piss poor. Let's keep that energy.
Yeah. That's my plea to Florida fans. Remember, we're not supposed to be good.
But I mean, we're not a year removed from us having this conversation. Me and Clark sitting over here talking about UT, being like, "Well, our expectations, we'd love to get to 8 wins," and then midway through the season, if you remember last year, we're like, the heck, we ought to win a national title.
Beat South Carolina, you're in the playoff.
Yeah. So I mean, things do change, but you know, hopefully, I was looking at Florida's at their schedule. And it's tough.
That leads me to my second kind of evaluation mindset is we have a very tough schedule.
It's dirty.
It's not easy for a second year coach who's trying to build some momentum that he came into that was more or less a negative situation. So yeah. We gotta play. I mean, obviously our SEC schedule is tough. Now, I'm kind of preaching to the choir a little bit here. Like Tennessee, it's not like anybody's SEC schedule is easy,
except for Georgia's.
But Georgia's. Oh my gosh, I don't know how this happens every year. I'm not picking on Georgia at all, but like, it's
unbelievable.
It is kind of wild. Like, this
year. When you are the best team or expected to be the best team in the conference to begin with,
you don't have the luxury of playing yourself,
right?
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, it could definitely be more difficult.
I mean, what was crazy is that they have 1, 2, 3 road games. Because to me, Georgia Tech doesn't even count as a road game.
Yeah,
so they're on the road with Auburn, Vanderbilt, and Tennessee this year. That's it.
Yeah.
The rest of the time they're at home, and I'd say they do travel to Georgia Tech, which will be a completely red stadium.
Yeah. And Atlanta. 30 minutes from there, or an hour from there.
But
that's unbelievable to me.
It's tough because, I mean, Florida's playing Utah to start the season, top 10 team. We're playing Florida State to end the season, top 10 team. And that's not even our SEC schedule, who we always have. Of course, Georgia, of course, Tennessee. LSU. We always have LSU. Like, it's just wild to me. And then it gets even worse next year. Next year is a super tough schedule for Florida.
Well, just looking at some of the teams on Florida's schedule that are not ranked. Just the teams that are not ranked. You've got Missouri, Arkansas, which has a really good running back.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina and Kentucky. All those are SEC. I mean, Vandy, but all those are SEC schools that aren't ranked. Mm-hmm. You know they're going to be good.
And some of those are going to become ranked during the season.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
There's going to be 1 or 2 of those that are probably just outside the top 25 right now. And once they win a couple games to start the season, they'll be up in the top 25.
Yeah, so that kind of, I don't mean to spend too much time on Florida, but that kind of, I'm speaking a little, I'm balancing things out a little bit. I think we're going to be, we're not necessarily, we don't have a void of talent. I think we've got, like I said, the running back room with Johnson and Etienne is solid. And then we've got a transfer coming in that's good there too. We got Purcell at wide receiver, which is our best wide receiver returning. We had a decent a couple guys on the offensive line transfer in the offseason. We've got I like our defense a lot better than I do last year. Yeah, so there's a way I can look at it, be like, hey, we're not 4-8's a little much.
Yes,
but then when I look at the schedule, and then I think, like to your point, Cole, that like, you look at the supposedly winnable games, and they're still very difficult games. I'm like, South Carolina, Kentucky, Missouri. Vandy we lost to last year. That was embarrassing. Arkansas. Like,
yeah, I mean, you all have the disadvantage, in my opinion, of playing that Florida State rivalry every year, because
it sucks.
that's
I hate
a
it.
battle. I mean, it's also one of the coolest things about college football is Florida State. It's got to be there, but
I loved it when Florida State sucked. I hate it now.
It almost makes you feel bad for scheduling an extra one like Utah, but I mean, who knows when they scheduled that and nobody thought Utah would be a top 50
probably 8
team.
years ago.
Yeah, so who knows?
All right, so that's a little bit more in depth of Tennessee and Florida. Let's talk through SEC East and West real quick. The general consensus, like I was saying earlier about, here's what most people think, is Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, Kentucky, Florida, Missouri, Vandy. That's the SEC Media Days things. Do y'all feel that's kind of where I'm at too. I wouldn't be shocked. I would not be shocked if it went, Georgia, Tennessee is going to be a tough 1 and 2. I know most people are like, well, Georgia's obviously number 1. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying, they've got the best play, in my opinion, the best player in college football with Brock Bowers.
When you come off back-to-back national championships, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, but even like they've done so good at just plugging a guy in at quarterback. Like no one even cares who quarterback is. I don't even,
They're in Alabama.
Yeah,
I mean they've got their roster to a point where they can just reload each year, and just plug and play. Now quarterback is still. I mean, how mad did we get last year watching him? What's his name from Georgia? Last year, the quarterback,
Stetson Bennett.
Stetson. I mean, he frustrated the crap out of us last year because he kept making plays and we kept wondering how that dork was doing it. But somehow or another, so maybe it is a system thing with him. I don't know, but I'd like to see them. I want to see them with a new quarterback before I just give them the East or get.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, their defense is just always so freaking good. And to your point, where we can go out and recruit offensive players easily because of the system, and it's obviously attractive if you're a receiver. I mean, if you're any skill position player on the offensive side of the ball, you're like, yeah, I want to go there because it's gonna, I'm gonna get a lot of opportunity, right? I feel like that's Georgia's calling card. Look at our defense. Like, if you're the best in the country, come prove it and play on our defense, because you're gonna have to earn your spot, and if you're on that field, you're probably gonna be getting scouted by NFL, because our defense is just amazing.
So Georgia, Tennessee, are we there? Are we all three there for 1 and 2?
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah,
I believe that's.
I think so. I mean,
who's our third? My third is probably South Carolina,
which is so weird to say.
And I actually think Florida
quarterback play.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking Florida is going to come in after South Carolina ahead of Kentucky. Although, Kentucky's got the offensive coordinator back that they lost last year. But I mean, let's just say it's the optimistic side of me.
I think Kentucky's definitely the dark horse of this season.
Or
potentially Florida.
Yeah.
I mean, the way we've talked about their schedule, I mean, Florida, you're not expecting that much, but if they just roll through some SEC teams, they're right there in the middle.
I've actually got Ole Miss fourth. I'm not getting tricked by Texas A&M again. The SEC Media Days have Texas A&M third. I'm not. Fool me once.
Did you have 3?
Shame on everybody. Huh?
Did you say third?
Ole Miss.
Ole Miss.
Yeah. And then I've got Auburn, Arkansas, I got Texas A&M after Ole Miss, but then Auburn, Arkansas, Mississippi State. So
I like that.
yeah, it's tough, because you look at some of these, like we were talking about earlier. Oh, Mississippi State's picked to finish last in the SEC West. Well, who do you like them better than?
Yeah.
I don't really know. I know Auburn's not, it's a rebuilding year for them, but Hugh Freeze is probably going to come in and do something decent on offense. So
I like the thing about Mississippi State is I think they have one of the better quarterbacks with Will Rogers in the division.
yeah,
So that just goes a long way. But I mean, it was rough last year. Obviously, losing their coach.
Yeah,
I mean, that was
tough.
brutal.
Tough.
And they have a new head coach this year. So I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I don't know. As far as the top, I think you got Bama and LSU there. I did put Bama, but it wouldn't surprise me. Just really if LSU ended up there at the one spot and Alabama at the 2. I think they'll be 1 and 2. Texas A&M, man, I don't know what to do with them. I mean, there's no reason that a team with that much talent should produce such poor results every year. I don't understand it. I mean, they have unbelievable talent on that roster, and so you keep thinking surely there's going to be a year where they actually do what they should.
Sometimes it's hard to get things out of your employees if you pay them before they do the work. So maybe that's what's happening.
Note to business owners.
Could be.
Pay a bunch of high school kids to come in there, unbelievable amounts of money. You may not get the work ethic you want.
Well,
maybe Texas
kids don't
A&M
have good work
first will have
ethic
that.
if you pay them money, much less if you pay them money before they do anything. There's our NIL talk.
Yeah.
No, but I do think there's. Let's put it this way: Texas A&M is in a produce or they'll figure out a way to move on type situation because they were that bad last year. So and they were supposed to be that good last year.
Oh, they were.
So how
10.
short is the leash?
Anything worse than 7-5, they let go of him.
Yeah.
Even at 7-5, maybe I think he made.
That'd be a good amount of a good solid argument to let him go at 7-5.
I'm just looking at their roster
schedule.
or their schedule. Sorry, one of those. I'm good at this. Let's see. So as far as tough games that A&M has, they got Miami early, but Miami's not what they were last year. I don't think. Really, they don't play anybody until Alabama, and that's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game in. They've got Auburn before that, but I just don't see them.
No, I don't see Auburn being much of a.
Being that great.
I'd like for them to. I like seeing Auburn do well, but you can't do well every season. It's going to take some time. So, looking through the first and second teams of all SEC teams, Florida doesn't have a single player on first or second teams in offense or defense. They have on offense, they have one guy on third team, which is Trevor Etienne, and they have 2 guys on third team on defense with Jason Marshall Jr. and Princely, our defensive lineman. So, I don't think we're lacking. It's not a huge lack of talent there, but at least from a SEC standard, we're not exactly coming in with LSU guys. LSU and even Tennessee. Well, no, Tennessee's got Brew McCoy's there, of course, Joe Milton, Cooper Mays. So they got the offensive linemen. So they got a few guys on the team. So anyway, just as I'm going through here, that's something I noticed. All right, let's get into real quick playoffs. My playoffs are. I think Georgia and Alabama make it. I think Michigan makes it, and I think USC makes it.
So here's my question on the Alabama and Georgia both making it. They don't play this year.
Not only
Season, so
only would
it'll be
if it was
between-
the SEC championship.
Yeah, so it's probably going to be LSU or Bama getting in. So do we get in that situation where if they both make the playoffs, is that because LSU made the SEC championship?
Oh, yeah.
You start getting into thinking about that.
We'll save that one for December.
Or do they put them in the playoff again after playing in the SEC championship again?
Yeah.
I don't know if they would do that. It's one of those things where you have to wait till that time and see what the records are, I guess.
Yeah. What do y'all think?
I got Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Texas. I think Texas,
fair
has a shot. I mean, they played Alabama
close
really
last year.
well with, and that was losing their quarterback in the game. If they can put some things together. I think they're starting at like 10 or 11 in the preseason polls. So if they could put some things together, I think they could easily work their way up there and be in the conversation. So, I mean, it's just hard after trying to pick the SEC champion and Ohio State. The other two teams are just kind of a shot in the dark for me. So,
Yeah. Cole, who you got?
I got Georgia. I'm going to go with Ohio State. And I'm going to throw out two other ones. I'm going to put in Florida State.
Golly, you're fired.
And I think USC is going to make it this year. So that's my
I kind of had USC too. The last couple, I mean, especially last year. What if I remember right? And I think they were the Utah game away from going to the playoffs.
Yeah,
if
possibly.
I remember right. Sometimes the West Coast stuff gets a little fuzzy to me, but I think I remember that being the case. So, okay, week 1. We have officially entered into week 1 territory. This week is when the games start. So we're gonna hit just the main games from week 1. Games like Florida, Utah, Tennessee, Virginia, Florida State, LSU, and I actually think South Carolina, North Carolina is going to be a good game. That's a solid week 1 matchup. Everything else is just as any week 1 cupcake matchups. Like, not going to go too deep into the preview, especially, and not a ton. As we get into the next week, not a ton into the review because you just can't take a ton from it. More or less, we'll be just talking about the rosters and how everybody played, instead of trying to make assumptions based on cupcake games from whoever. Most of SEC's playing cupcake games, but we'll start with Florida, Utah. This is the mirrored game from last year when Utah came to the Swamp with Cam Rising and Anthony Richardson had his breakout party. I guess you could say, no, he had some good hype going into this. I mean, from the previous season, but as a starter, he kind of came into the national stage there. And Florida was able to pull out the win. It was late, and Utah very easily could have won. The kicker with this game will be, is Cam Rising playing? And even is their backup quarterback playing? Because he's injured too. Cam Rising tore his ACL in the last game of the season. There's thoughts, will he or won't he play? Obviously, that's a lot of things hinge on that. I think Utah wins, but I think Florida keeps it close. It's in Utah. I do think Utah wins either with, unless they're playing their third string guy, but either of their top 2 quarterbacks play. I think Utah probably takes the game. There's just supposed to be so much. They're supposed to be, I think, a top 10 team. So I'm not, I'll say top 10.
Top 15. They're
top
14.
Top 15. Yeah, 14.
Yeah.
top 14 team.
Top 14 team. So, that I think, as a Florida fan, I'm not expecting to win, but if we did, fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I don't say we'll get all of our questions answered in that game, but it'll at least be. We'll start to know a little bit about real quick. We'll start to know a little bit about what this Florida team is. So,
I would agree with you. I'm going to take Utah in that one too, just because the unknown of Florida is just, I don't know.
You don't really have anything to base a Florida win on, like.
Other
I
than
do.
it's an SEC
I'm taking
school
Florida.
and they've got
Okay.
SEC talent. And
Okay, give me your
it
reason.
wouldn't surprise me.
I'm
Let's put
taking
it
Florida.
that way.
Assuming if Cam Rising's not playing quarterback for Utah, I'm going to take Florida. We'll see. I mean, to your point, I think that if they can control the clock, can run the ball, can just kind of let the offense just kind of manage the game, keep it low scoring, I think they could go in there, and I think that's what they'll try to do. Try to shorten the game up, try to ground and pound, not ask their new quarterback to do too much in the first game. And I think they could go in there and get a win if Utah's offense doesn't move the ball that well, which who knows? I don't know. Granted, I don't know anything about Utah's backup quarterback, but I know Cam Rising was a good quarterback last year, and so if he's not there, then I would take Florida. If Cam Rising's playing, I would say Utah takes it.
Tennessee, Virginia. I think Tennessee's going to come out wanting to be shot out of a cannon. It's in Nashville, right?
It's in Nashville, yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of orange in that sucker.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of the unknown, but I feel like we got a little bit of a sample of Milton, obviously, in that Clemson game last year.
And he played well in that game.
I don't doubt the guy. I mean, I think he's going to be very, very good. I just don't know that he's going to be Hendon Hooker, take us to the next level good. But I think he's definitely going to be good. So, I like Tennessee in that game. I like them to roll in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, and couple that with, Tennessee's supposed to be good, plus Virginia's picked at the bottom of the ACC.
Yeah.
So that's a good game to get right.
And here's the thing. This is I'll be anxious to see then the defensive side of the ball, because I mean if Virginia's bottom of the ACC, obviously we should roll.
Yeah.
But what will be discouraging to me is even if we put up in 50 to 60 points but still give up 35, I won't be happy. Right. So
and that's what we were I was talking about earlier. Like with this team, how fast we're going to play offensively. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe we got to start thinking of 30 points given up is not as bad as it used to be. As long as we're scoring 60.
Dude, if we could rewind like 3 years, and I think we've even talked about this. Like, hey, will you be okay if Tennessee scores 60 and gives up 30? All of y'all would be like, sign. You just tell me where to sign.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
I'm just saying,
win and be excited.
If we give up 35 to a team like that, it's just not going to bode well for when we're playing.
But to our points earlier, expectations change based on where the floor changes, right? So, no, we didn't have expectations for Tennessee to be a playoff team necessarily at the beginning of last season, but we saw that they could be. So I'm not obviously I have to change my expectations based. So this is a similar thing, No, we're not thinking, we're not saying Tennessee needs to have shutouts, but now we're judging them on a higher tier. Now we're like, okay, they can play, they can beat Alabama, they can play with Georgia. Okay, let's judge them based on that tier. And so I don't think it's unfair to say, hey, Tennessee needs to not give up 60 to South Carolina. Yeah. The game I'm looking for, so the 2 games left. I don't have predictions necessarily in this particular game with South Carolina, UNC. It's just an interesting game for me because I know North Carolina's not picked to be.
North Carolina's ranked preseason.
Are they really? They're not picked to. They're. So SEC has tier 1 of Clemson and Florida State, and tier 2 North Carolina being the top team. So they're not picked to be the top of the ACC, but they're right there behind Florida State and Clemson. I want to see that game. I don't know who's going to win. I don't know enough about I don't know exactly memorize the 2 deeps on both those rosters, but I do think it's going to be an interesting game to watch. It'll tell us a little bit about each team, specifically South Carolina. So,
what time is that game?
I don't know. Does this roster or does this?
I'm pulling it up.
Well, I have the schedule thing here. No, it doesn't have the.
It's at 7:30.
Nice.
And UNC is ranked 21 preseason. Nice. So.
Okay.
But Spencer Rattler.
Yes.
I mean, they're going to have the best quarterback. South Carolina's going to. Oh well, I say that. I don't know anything about North Carolina's quarterback, so
there's a lot of hype on Twitter, I guess X now. God, on X about
X gonna give it to you
about Spencer Rattler and what he's looking like in camp and all these things. So we'll see. All right, FSU, LSU. We'll close on this one.
Gosh,
I'm looking forward to this one, boys.
Give me LSU. I mean, and this one's at Florida State, right? Is it neutral site?
I think it may be neutral site because was last year in New Orleans?
That may be where they're playing. That may be it. Let's see. Let's see what it says here. It says at Florida State.
At Florida State, but that could just mean they're the home
correct.
team.
That's on that Sunday, right?
Oh, is it?
No. Wait, September the 3rd at 7:30. Is that?
That's a Sunday.
That's Sunday?
Yeah, because the 2nd is the Saturday.
Okay, yeah. So they're playing 7:30 on Sunday.
And it's being played in Camping World Stadium in Orlando.
Okay, Orlando.
Okay.
So, what were your predictions on that? You taking LSU?
I'm going to take LSU. Yeah, I think Daniels, like I said, he's predicted to be the best, or the highest performing quarterback in the SEC per a lot of people. We'll see. I mean, he didn't play good against us last year, thankfully, but he had some really good games last year too. So, and Florida State.
Jordan Travis is supposed to be a stud this year.
Legit, yeah. So we'll see. That could be an exciting game.
Cole, who you got? Florida State, LSU?
Well, I picked Florida State to be in the playoffs, so I may have screwed that up.
Because now you picking LSU to win?
Nah, I'm going to take Florida State. I think Florida State's going to be good this year.
Yeah, I could make a case for the hype behind them for sure. You can, I don't know. I don't know that my opinion on them, for one, I definitely know it doesn't matter. I don't know that it's necessarily, as a Florida fan, I don't know.
As long as Florida beats them, you don't care what else.
Yeah, and we were just one score away last year, and we kind of, I don't know. I felt like we very easily could have won that game. Jordan Travis, I'm not going to get into the calls, but Jordan Travis had a couple of really good plays. I know fans really think highly of him going into this season, so I don't know. This is if Norvell's going to do it, or at least prove that he's got this thing solidified as a perennial powerhouse again with Florida State. This year means a lot. Like, a lot for them.
Well, that's what I was sitting here thinking that, it's such a big game for them overall, but if they lose to a top 5 team right out the gate, roll through the ACC,
a
beat
team
Clemson,
they beat last year, though.
They could still get right back into the playoffs.
They could. I just think that
a one-loss ACC,
yeah,
and it's out of conference loss to an SEC.
Yeah,
I could see them getting in.
You're speaking logically. Unreasonable fans will look at this game thinking we beat them last year, and we're supposed to be better this year, and we lose to them.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes expectations are what is it's like the curse of a team, or expectations. And I think it's not a bad thing to have expectations, because that means people think you're going to be good, but it also is very dangerous. So, like, that's the game Florida State's playing this year. They have expectations, like sometimes
which is kind of wild, because it seems like the last decade they've been terrible.
Yeah,
I feel like they're a lot like Tennessee fans, where it's just like it's been a long road of.
It's not far off. You're not far off there.
Really bad football, and then you finally have a good season. You're like, oh, we're back, baby.
It's probably hard to really believe, but when's the last time that Florida State was the outright favorite to win the ACC over Clemson?
Were they the favorite in 2013 when they won a national championship?
I would say it's
probably
at least that long ago, though. 10 years.
Yeah. They've not been the favorite. Clemson's run started in what, 15-ish?
Yeah, 15. I think they won the whole thing.
So. Yeah. So I would
the
say
whole thing in 15.
So, Clemson is on the ACC for a good, let's say, 8 years at least.
Yeah, and I'm Clemson's interesting to me again this year, because
may jump right back in.
That the quarterback situation that all these big time teams, they're bringing in a 5-star. They lose a 5-star, bring in a 5-star. Not all 5-stars pan out, but if expectations are very closely linked to how the quarterbacks perform, it's just an interesting situation on teams like Clemson and Alabama and even Georgia. None of those 3 teams, which are like the cream of the crop, have guys stepping in a quarterback position that we know a ton about. So But yeah, man, that's our week 1 right there. So just take all these predictions and go to Vegas, or just go online now. Just go online. You can do it online. No, seriously, don't though. don't send me emails talking about the predictions were bad.
So what is Florida's record going to be this year?
Oh yeah, I guess I never got to that. I think a successful. My prediction is what I think they could very well do, and what I think would be a successful season is 7-5. I'm happy with that.
That's what
7-6. You know.
I wrote down 7-5 when I looked through their schedule, which, I mean, that's generous. I mean, that's I feel, I say generous, but it's just, that's winning all those kind of like games, like, Kentucky and Arkansas, and it's going to be some tough games. But I put them at 7-5. I put Tennessee at 10-2.
Oh yeah, we never did. I like 10-2 prediction for Tennessee. What do you think, Cole? 10-2's it's up there. That's a playoff possibility, depending on where that second one comes from.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're gonna. I don't think we'll beat Georgia. I feel like we're gonna beat Alabama again.
Go to Alabama this year.
For some
they're
reason,
gonna want to step on
like
that neck, boy. They're ready for this one. But that's not to say they'll win.
Well, we were ready for 15 in a row before we finally beat one of them.
I kind of like Tennessee versus Georgia this year more than I like Tennessee versus Alabama. But we'll see.
That's kind of how I feel about it, honestly. I think we're going to lose on the road at Alabama, but I think
Tennessee's Georgia's at home, right?
Yeah, Georgia's at home. I think we got. I mean, we'll see.
Dude, that place is going to be nutso.
Yeah, if we go into that game and we have one loss and it's only to Alabama on the road, because that game is the third to last game of the season against Georgia. So I mean, we're deep into the season at that point. At that point, you feel like if you win that game, you're winning the East, and you got a chance to win the whole thing. If we get to that point, we'll see. But
my thing is between the two, Georgia and Alabama, is what works for us. That's Georgia's strength.
Yeah,
and it's so hard to throw on their defensive or on their secondary that's what I think so much harder about. I feel like the secondary has gotten better at Georgia than it is at Alabama, and it's not close.
Environment just plays such a big role, though. Environment in college football does play a big role, I feel like.
All right, wrapping up week 1, or I guess I don't know what we call this.
Week
0. Week 0, dork. All right, week 0. Just as a reminder, we are a company. What I want to do this year to kind of just remind everyone like what our podcast is, who we are as a company is I'm pinning a kind of like a preview / overview short episode at the top of our feed that will explain who we are as a company, what Shop Talk is as a podcast, and kind of the mindset behind it all. But we're a stainless steel drinkware sports license brand, GameTimeSidekicks.com. Check us out. And yeah, checked out the pinned episode at the top of our feed that kind of explains a little bit about why our podcast is a little different, why it's a little unique, and kind of gives a little background to us. But Mondays are our upload days. We'll see y'all next Monday after week 1.